English Daily, the podcast.
Your English journey starts now.
Hello and welcome to English Daily Podcast. I'm Jack, your host, and I'm thrilled to have you here today.
And I'm Anna. Hello, everyone. Jack, I'm so excited about today's topic because it's something I've been wanting to discuss for a while now.
Absolutely, Anna. Today's episode is all about vocabulary for the circular economy and sustainability in business. We're living in 2026, and these terms are no longer just buzzwords. They're essential for anyone working in or interested in modern business.
That's right. And what makes this episode really special is that we're going to cover everything from basic circular economy concepts to advanced terms like net positive outcomes and regenerative hospitality. There's something for everyone here.
Whether you're a business professional, a student, or just someone interested in sustainability, you'll walk away from this episode with valuable vocabulary and the confidence to use these terms in real conversations.
And remember, we're here to learn together. So don't worry if some of these terms are new to you. By the end of this episode, you'll be speaking about sustainability in English like a pro.
Let's dive right in, shall we? But first, Anna, tell our listeners what they can expect from today's episode.
Of course. We've divided this episode into several sections. First, we'll have a main conversation where Jack and I discuss 6 key subtopics related to circular economy vocabulary. Then, we'll break down 15 to 20 essential phrases and terms. Finally, we'll wrap up with some reflection questions to help you practice what you've learned.
That sounds like a comprehensive episode, Anna. I think our listeners are going to love it. Now, before we begin, I want to remind everyone that you can find the show notes and a full transcript on our website. But for now, let's get started with our main conversation.
Jack, I want to start with the basics. Can you explain what the circular economy actually means? I've heard this term thrown around so much lately, but I feel like many people still don't fully understand it.
That's a great question, Anna. The circular economy is one of those concepts that can seem complicated at first, but it's actually quite straightforward once you break it down. Essentially, a circular economy is an economic model that aims to eliminate waste and the continual use of resources.
So it's the opposite of what we've been doing traditionally?
Exactly. Traditionally, we've operated on what's called a linear economy. This is the classic take, make, waste model. You take resources from the earth, you make products, and then you throw them away when you're done with them. It's a one-way street, if you will.
That's so wasteful when you think about it. I remember reading that the average person throws away tons of materials every year that could actually be reused or recycled.
Absolutely. And this is where the circular economy comes in. Instead of the linear model, a circular economy operates on 3 key principles: eliminate waste and pollution, circulate products and materials at their highest value, and regenerate nature. It's about creating a closed-loop system where nothing is wasted.
Can you give me an example to make this clearer for our listeners?
Sure. Think about a smartphone. In a linear economy, you buy a phone, use it for a few years, and then when it breaks or becomes outdated, you throw it away and buy a new one. But in a circular economy, the phone would be designed to be easily repaired, upgraded, and eventually disassembled so that its components can be reused in new products.
That's a great example. And I think this is why we're seeing so many companies now offering trade-in programs and repair services. It's not just about being environmentally friendly, it also makes good business sense.
You've hit on something important there, Anna. The circular economy isn't just an environmental movement. It's becoming a fundamental shift in how businesses operate. Companies are realizing that circular business models can be more profitable in the long run because they reduce material costs and create new revenue streams.
You know, Jack, this makes me think about my grandmother's generation. They didn't have a choice. They had to be circular out of necessity. Everything was reused, repaired, and repurposed because that's just how life was.
That's such a good point. In many ways, the circular economy is a return to those old-fashioned values, but with modern technology and innovation. It's like we're reinventing the past for a sustainable future.
I love that perspective. And for our listeners who are learning business English, this is a perfect opportunity to start using terms like closed loop system, resource efficiency, and waste minimization in their professional conversations.
Absolutely. These are terms you'll hear in sustainability reports, business meetings, and industry conferences. So pay attention because we'll be breaking down more vocabulary as we go.
Jack, I've been hearing a lot about net zero and now net positive outcomes. Can you explain the difference between these two concepts?
That's an excellent question, Anna, and it's a topic that's evolving rapidly in the business world. Net zero has been the standard goal for many companies, but there's a growing movement toward net positive, which represents a more ambitious approach.
So, what exactly does net zero mean?
Net zero refers to the balance between the amount of greenhouse gas emissions produced and the amount removed from the atmosphere. When a company reaches net zero, it means they're not adding any additional carbon to the atmosphere. They're balancing what they emit with what they remove.
Okay, so it's like a scale that's perfectly balanced. But what's the problem with just achieving net zero?
The issue is that net zero is essentially about doing no harm. It's about minimizing damage. But many experts and business leaders are now arguing that this isn't enough. We need to do more than just balance the scales. We need to actively improve the environment.
So that's where net positive comes in.
Exactly. Net positive goes beyond neutrality. When a company claims to be net positive, it's saying that it's actually giving back more than it takes. Not only are they eliminating their negative impact, but they're also creating a positive impact on the environment and society.
This is really exciting, Jack. I recently read about some hotels that are trying to become net positive. They're not just reducing their environmental footprint, they're actually trying to leave the environment better than they found it.
Yes, and that's a perfect segue to our next topic, Anna. But before we move on, I want to emphasize how important these terms are for business English. You'll hear net zero commitment, carbon neutral, climate positive, and net positive impact used frequently in sustainability discussions.
And listeners, don't worry if these concepts seem complex now. We'll be breaking down more vocabulary later in the episode, and I'll be asking Jack some reflection questions to help reinforce what we've learned.
I'm looking forward to that, Anna. Now, let's talk more about this regenerative approach to business, which really ties into what we were just discussing.
And Jack, I'm so glad you mentioned regenerative hospitality because this is something I've been personally fascinated by. Can you explain what regenerative hospitality means?
Regenerative hospitality is an approach to tourism and hotel management that goes beyond sustainable or eco-friendly practices. It's about creating a net positive impact on the environment and local communities, essentially leaving a place better than you found it.
So instead of just minimizing harm, you're actually actively improving the destination.
Exactly. Traditional sustainability often focuses on doing less bad, reducing negative impacts. But regenerative hospitality is about doing more good. It's a philosophy that asks, how can we contribute to the health and vitality of this place and its people?
What does this look like in practice? What are hotels and resorts actually doing?
There are so many creative approaches. Some hotels are implementing regenerative farms, where they grow organic produce for their restaurants, while also restoring soil health and biodiversity. Others are investing in local education programs or supporting conservation projects.
I love hearing about these initiatives. I remember staying at a resort last year that had completely eliminated single-use plastics and had a partnership with local beekeepers to support pollinator populations. They called themselves Bee Friendly Certified.
That's a wonderful example, and that's the spirit of regenerative hospitality. It's about thinking holistically, considering not just the environmental impact, but also the economic and social dimensions. When a hotel invests in local beekeepers, it's supporting the local economy, promoting biodiversity and educating guests about the importance of pollinators.
You know, Jack, this makes me think about how travel is changing. People used to just want luxury and comfort, but now, especially after the pandemic, many travelers are looking for meaning and authenticity. They want to feel like their travel choices are making a positive difference.
That's such an important observation. The travel industry has undergone a massive shift. Today's travelers, especially younger generations, are more conscious about their environmental footprint. They want to support businesses that align with their values.
And for our listeners who might be working in the hospitality industry or studying business English, this is such an important vocabulary area. Terms like regenerative tourism, eco-certification, carbon offsetting, and community-based tourism are becoming essential.
Don't forget terms like zero-waste hotel, sustainable supply chain, and local sourcing. These are all phrases you'll hear in the hospitality industry today.
I'm taking notes, Jack. This is gold for anyone preparing for a career in sustainable tourism or hospitality management.
And remember, Anna, the beauty of regenerative hospitality is that it's not just about big hotels or resorts. Even small bed and breakfasts and local tour operators can embrace these principles. It's about a mindset shift, not just big investments.
That's so true. It's inspiring to see how the industry is evolving. Now let's move on to another important topic, green infrastructure and sustainable business practices. This is something that affects all businesses, not just the hospitality sector. Jack, let's talk about green infrastructure. I know this term is used in urban planning, but how does it apply to businesses?
Green infrastructure refers to a network of natural and semi-natural features that provide environmental, social, and economic benefits. In a business context, it can include things like green roofs, living walls, rainwater harvesting systems, and sustainable landscaping.
So it's about incorporating nature into the built environment?
Absolutely. Green infrastructure is about working with nature rather than against it. It's about designing buildings and facilities that mimic natural systems to manage water, reduce energy consumption, and improve air quality.
Can you give some specific examples of green infrastructure in business settings?
Sure, a green roof is a perfect example. Instead of a traditional flat roof, you plant vegetation that absorbs rainwater, provides insulation, and creates habitat for birds and insects. Companies like Apple and Google have installed massive green roofs at their headquarters.
I've seen pictures of Apple's headquarters. The Ring building has a massive circular park on the roof, right?
Yes, Apple's Cupertino campus has a 175-acre park on its roof, which includes thousands of trees and plants. It's not just aesthetically pleasing, it also helps manage stormwater, reduces the urban heat island effect, and provides a natural habitat for wildlife.
That's incredible. But what about smaller businesses? Is green infrastructure only for big corporations with huge budgets?
Not at all, Anna. Green infrastructure can be implemented at any scale. Even small businesses can install rain barrels to collect rainwater for landscaping, plant trees to provide shade and reduce energy costs, or create rooftop gardens.
That's encouraging to hear. I think sometimes people assume that sustainability is only for wealthy companies, but that's not true at all.
You're absolutely right. And actually, many green infrastructure investments pay for themselves over time through energy savings and reduced water costs. It's both environmentally and economically beneficial.
For our listeners, some key terms here include sustainable building design, LEED certification, energy efficiency, renewable energy, and carbon footprint reduction.
And don't forget terms like green roof, living wall, rainwater harvesting, biophilic design, and natural ventilation. These are all specific vocabulary items that will help you discuss green infrastructure in English.
I remember when I first heard biophilic design, I had to look it up. It's such a cool concept, designing buildings that connect people with nature.
Biophilic design is all about incorporating natural elements, light, ventilation, and organic materials into building design to improve occupant well-being and productivity. Studies have shown that workers in buildings with biophilic elements are happier, healthier, and more productive.
That's such an important point for businesses to consider. Sustainability isn't just about environmental responsibility, it's also about creating better spaces for people to live and work in.
Absolutely. And that brings us to our next topic, which is corporate sustainability reporting and ESG. Let's dive into that next.
Jack, I keep hearing about ESG and sustainability reporting. Can you explain what ESG stands for and why it's so important in 2026?
ESG stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance. It's a framework that investors and stakeholders use to evaluate a company's performance and practices in these three key areas: how it impacts the environment, how it treats people, and how it's governed.
So it's a way to measure how responsible and ethical a company is?
Exactly. ESG has become incredibly important because investors, customers, and employees are increasingly demanding that companies operate responsibly. A company with strong ESG credentials is seen as less risky and more likely to achieve long-term success.
Can you tell me what sustainability reporting looks like in practice? What do companies actually have to disclose?
Good question. Companies now report on a wide range of metrics. Environmental metrics include carbon emissions, energy consumption, water usage, and waste management. Social metrics cover employee diversity, labor practices, community engagement, and supply chain labor conditions. Governance metrics address board diversity, executive pay, transparency, and ethical standards.
That's comprehensive. I've noticed that many companies now publish annual sustainability reports alongside their financial reports.
Yes, and in many countries, it's becoming mandatory. The European Union, for example, has implemented strict sustainability reporting requirements for large companies. Similar regulations are being developed in other parts of the world.
For our listeners, key terms here include sustainability report, ESG disclosure, carbon accounting, social impact, corporate governance, and stakeholder engagement.
You should also know terms like materiality assessment, double materiality, GRI standards, JASB, and TCFD. These are all specific frameworks and standards used in sustainability reporting.
This sounds quite technical. How can someone without a finance background understand all of this?
That's a great point, Anna. The terminology can be overwhelming, but the underlying concepts are straightforward. At its core, ESG is about asking, is this company doing the right thing? Is it creating value for all its stakeholders, not just shareholders?
I love that framing. It makes ESG feel more accessible. And I think it's important to remember that ESG isn't just about compliance, it's about building better, more resilient businesses.
Absolutely. Companies with strong ESG performance tend to be more innovative, attract better talent, and build stronger relationships with their customers. It's becoming a competitive advantage.
Now, let's talk about something that I think is really exciting: the future of sustainable business in 2026 and beyond. There's so much innovation happening. Jack, we're already in 2026, which feels like the future. What are some of the most exciting trends in sustainable business that you're seeing right now?
Oh, there are so many exciting developments. Let me think about the most impactful trends. First, we're seeing a massive acceleration in renewable energy adoption. More companies are committing to 100% renewable energy, and the cost of solar and wind has dropped dramatically.
What else is happening?
Another major trend is the rise of the circular business model. Companies are redesigning their products to be more durable, repairable, and recyclable. We're seeing growth in product-as-a-service models, where customers pay for the service a product provides rather than owning the product itself.
Can you explain the product as a service model a bit more?
Of course. Think of Philips, the lighting company. Instead of selling light bulbs, they sell light as a service. Customers pay for the illumination they need, and Philips retains ownership of the light fixtures, maintaining them and upgrading them as needed. This creates an incentive for Philips to make durable, long-lasting products because they're responsible for maintenance.
That's brilliant. It completely changes the business incentive structure. Now the company benefits from making products that last longer.
Exactly. And that's the power of circular business models. They align profitability with sustainability. Another exciting trend is the use of technology, like artificial intelligence and blockchain, to improve supply chain transparency and traceability.
How is blockchain being used for sustainability?
Blockchain can be used to track products from raw material to finished good, ensuring that sustainable practices are followed throughout the supply chain. For example, you could scan a QR code on a piece of furniture and see exactly where the wood came from, whether it was sustainably harvested, and the carbon footprint of transportation.
That's amazing. Technology really has the power to drive sustainability forward in incredible ways.
Absolutely. And one more trend I want to mention is the concept of regenerative business. This goes beyond sustainability to talk about businesses that actively restore and regenerate ecosystems and communities.
It's inspiring to see how far we've come. Just a few years ago, sustainability was often seen as a cost or a burden. Now it's becoming a driver of innovation and competitive advantage.
That's so true, Anna. And I think the most exciting thing is that we're just getting started. The next decade is going to bring even more transformative changes.
I couldn't agree more, Jack. And for our listeners, this is your opportunity to get ahead of the curve. By learning this vocabulary now, you'll be prepared to participate in these conversations and contribute to the sustainable business movement.
Well said, Anna. Now let's move on to our vocabulary breakdown section, where we'll go over the key phrases from today's conversation.
Now it's time for our vocabulary breakdown. Jack and I have selected 15 to 20 key phrases from today's conversation. We'll explain each term and give you examples of how to use them in business English.
Let's start with some of the fundamental terms.
Circular economy. This refers to an economic model that eliminates waste and pollutes by design, keeping materials in use at their highest value. For example, our company is transitioning from a linear to a circular economy model.
Linear economy, the traditional take, make, waste model of production and consumption. Example, the linear economy is becoming increasingly unsustainable as resources deplete.
Closed-loop system, a production process where waste is collected, recycled, and used to create new products. For example, our manufacturing facility operates as a closed-loop system.
Net zero, achieving a balance between greenhouse gas emissions produced and emissions removed from the atmosphere. Example, our company has committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2030.
Net positive, a standard where a company gives back more than it takes from the environment and society. For example, we aim to become a net positive company by 2035.
Regenerative hospitality, an approach to tourism that aims to leave destinations better than they were found. Example, our resort has adopted regenerative hospitality practices.
Green infrastructure, natural and semi-natural features that provide environmental benefits in urban areas. For example, we've installed green infrastructure, including a green roof and rain gardens.
Biophilic design, an architectural approach that incorporates natural elements into building design. Example, our new office features biophilic design with living walls and natural light.
ESG, environmental, social, and governance criteria used to evaluate corporate sustainability. For example, our investors are increasingly focused on ESG performance.
Sustainability report, a public document disclosing a company's environmental, social, and governance performance. Example, we published our annual sustainability report last month.
Carbon footprint, the total greenhouse gas emissions caused by an individual, organization, or product. For example, we're working to reduce our carbon footprint by 50%.
Renewable energy, energy from sources that are naturally replenished, like solar and wind. Example, our facility now runs on 100% renewable energy.
Product as a service, a business model where customers pay for the use of a product rather than owning it. For example, we're piloting a product as a service model for our equipment.
Supply chain transparency, the practice of sharing information about sourcing and production processes. Example, supply chain transparency is essential for building consumer trust.
Regenerative business, a business model that actively restores and improves ecosystems and communities. For example, our company is committed to becoming a regenerative business.
Zero waste, a set of principles aimed at eliminating waste and the continual use of resources. Example, our operations are guided by zero waste principles.
Sustainable sourcing, purchasing materials and products that minimize environmental and social impact. For example, we practice sustainable sourcing for all our raw materials.
Carbon offsetting, compensating for emissions by funding projects that reduce emissions elsewhere. Example, we offset our remaining carbon emissions through verified projects.
LEED certification, a green building certification system that recognizes sustainable practices. For example, our new headquarters has achieved LEED Platinum certification.
Double materiality, a reporting approach considering both how sustainability affects a company and how the company affects the environment and society. Example, we're adopting double materiality in our sustainability reporting.
Great job, Jack. These are such essential terms for anyone interested in sustainable business. I hope our listeners are taking notes.
Absolutely. Now, let's move on to our reflection questions. Anna, do you want to lead this section?
I'd love to. Let's help our listeners practice what they've learned with some thought-provoking questions. Now it's time for some reflection questions. I'll ask Jack these questions, and I want you, our listeners, to think about how you would answer them. Try to use the vocabulary we learned today in your responses. Question 1, Jack. Can you describe your company's approach to the circular economy? Are there any circular practices you personally support or would like to see implemented?
That's a great question, Anna. While I don't work for a company directly, I'm personally very passionate about circular economy principles. I try to buy products that are durable and repairable, and I always recycle electronics properly. I also support companies that offer take-back programs for their products. For example, I recently returned my old laptop to the manufacturer for proper recycling, and they gave me a discount on my new one.
Question 2, Jack. What do you think is the biggest challenge for companies trying to transition from net zero to net positive?
That's a thought-provoking question. I think the biggest challenge is measuring impact accurately. It's relatively straightforward to measure carbon emissions, but measuring positive impact, like how you're improving biodiversity or supporting communities, is much more complex. Companies need better tools and frameworks to track and verify their net positive claims. Otherwise, there's a risk of greenwashing, which undermines the entire movement.
Question 3, Jack. Have you ever experienced regenerative hospitality firsthand? What stood out to you about the experience?
Yes, actually. I stayed at an eco-lodge in Costa Rica a couple of years ago that truly embodied regenerative hospitality. What stood out to me was their commitment to the local community. They employed local guides, sourced food from nearby farmers, and even funded a local school. It wasn't just about environmental sustainability, it was about creating genuine economic and social value for the community.
Question 4, Jack. What green infrastructure elements would you like to see in your ideal workplace?
Oh, I have so many ideas. I'd love to work in a building with a green roof and living walls. I think natural ventilation systems would be wonderful. There's nothing like fresh air flowing through an office. I'd also appreciate dedicated spaces for relaxation in nature, even if it's just a small courtyard with plants. I believe these elements would significantly improve mental well-being and productivity.
Question 5, Jack. How important do you think ESG reporting should be for investors? Should it be mandatory?
I believe ESG reporting is becoming increasingly important, and I'm a strong advocate for making it mandatory, at least for larger companies. Transparency is essential for informed decision-making. That said, we need to ensure that ESG reporting standards are consistent and comparable across companies and countries. Right now, there's too much variation in how companies report their ESG data, which makes it difficult for investors to make apples-to-apples comparisons.
Question 6, Jack. Which sustainable business trend do you find most exciting for the future?
That's a tough question because there are so many exciting developments. I think I'm most excited about the convergence of technology and sustainability. Things like AI-powered energy management systems, blockchain for supply chain transparency, and advanced materials science are going to revolutionize how we do business. I'm also really optimistic about the growth of the circular economy and the shift toward regenerative business models.
Question 7. Jack, what advice would you give to someone who wants to make their workplace more sustainable but doesn't know where to start?
Great question. My advice would be to start small and think about quick wins. You could begin by proposing a recycling program or encouraging the use of reusable containers in the break room. Another idea is to suggest a green commuting program, maybe incentivize biking or public transportation. Also, I'd recommend researching what other companies in your industry are doing and learning from their successes and failures. And don't forget to measure your impact. You can't manage what you don't measure.
Question 8. Jack, how do you think sustainable business practices will evolve over the next 5 years?
I think we're going to see accelerated adoption of sustainable practices across all industries. Regulations will become stricter and consumer expectations will continue to rise. I also believe we'll see more businesses embracing the concept of purpose-driven companies, organizations that exist not just to make profit, but to solve social and environmental problems. Finally, I think technology will enable new circular business models that we can't even imagine yet.
Question 9. Jack, what role do you think individual consumers play in driving sustainable business practices?
Individual consumers have enormous power. Every purchase decision is a vote for the kind of world we want to live in. When consumers demand sustainable products and are willing to pay a premium for them, businesses respond. That's why I always encourage people to research companies before buying and to support businesses that align with their values. Collective consumer action can drive massive change.
Question 10. Jack, to wrap things up, what's one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember from today's episode?
That's a perfect question to end on. I think the most important takeaway is that sustainability is no longer optional. It's a business imperative. Whether you're an employee, a manager, an entrepreneur, or a consumer, you have a role to play in creating a more sustainable economy. And the vocabulary we've learned today will help you participate in these important conversations. Don't be afraid to use these terms. Practice makes perfect.
Wow, Jack, that was an incredible episode. I learned so much, and I hope our listeners did too.
I completely agree, Anna. This has been one of our most comprehensive episodes yet. We've covered so much ground, from the basics of the circular economy to the latest trends in sustainable business.
That's right. We discussed the difference between linear and circular economies, the shift from net zero to net positive outcomes, regenerative hospitality, green infrastructure, ESG reporting, and the exciting future of sustainable business.
And let's not forget all the vocabulary we covered. Our listeners now have 15 to 20 key phrases they can use in their business English conversations.
Absolutely. I feel so much more confident about using terms like circular economy, net positive, regenerative hospitality, and ESG in my professional conversations.
And remember, listeners, practice is key. Try using these new terms in your own sentences. You could even discuss the reflection questions with a friend or a study partner.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and attention. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with friends and colleagues who might benefit from learning this vocabulary.
And don't forget to check out our website for show notes, transcripts, and additional resources. We're always adding new content to help you improve your business English.
That's all for today, everyone. I'm Anna.
And I'm Jack. Until next time, keep learning and stay sustainable.
Bye for now.
Take care.
Your learning journey doesn't stop here. Keep improving your English. Click the next video or explore more episodes we've picked just for you. See you in the next lesson.